yeah, baby. We are back. The cam is telling me that I'm live, which means that you on the YouTube should be able to see me and hear me loud and clear. What is going on? We are back in the building. And before I get started, let me make sure that I have my audio set up correctly. I do. Sweet. All right. So everything is supposed to be muted as it is supposed to be muted. And yeah, we're back. What's up? Happy Friday. It's been a couple of weeks. I know some of y'all are not really big fans of the on and in, off and in scheduling, but hey, man, your boy Vyper's busy. Things are happening, so I can't always be here every Friday. I don't know. I don't know if I will be here next Friday, just because I'll be coming back from Dallas. So we shall see what happens. We're keeping next Friday open, so you may or may not get a show from me next Friday, but we'll keep it open. But let's go ahead and get to the intro and talk about this iPhone, man, and maybe get into this Apple Watch Ultra that I have on my wrist as well. This is the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which I have on, so we'll talk about that maybe too. But current time, according to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, is 6:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, which means you are in the right place. You are on the right YouTube channel, baby. Yes. For those of y'all who are regular around here, you know what's about to happen next. But for those of y'all who are new, or for those of y'all who somehow catch the replay of this live stream, you're going to want to listen to this next part very, very carefully, because this is a part of the live stream where I'm going to need you to turn your volume down. Because if you don't turn your volume down, I will not be held liable for what your neighbors think about you listening to some loud dude on YouTube. That's on you, not on me. That's on you, not on me. Now, I got to hurry up and get going because I got a guest in the back. So let's go ahead and get this intro in, and then we'll go to work. We don't have too many people in the chat, so the roll call should be quick. But what's up, people? This your boy Vyper, the man about tech, and we are live! Welcome to Friday Night Vyp, baby! Woo! Woo! Oh, yeah! It is that day again. We are back. We are live on YouTube. Now, before I get started with tonight's festivities, let me see who I got in the chat tonight. So first on the list is the Cool Gamer. What's up, man? How you doing? Actually, Genosis is actually first, but what's up, Genosis? How you doing, my dude? We got the Tech God. What's up, bro? How you doing? We got my man, Mr. L Cholesterol. What's up, bro? How you doing, man? Technically T in the building. What's up, bro? How you doing? And the Norwegian sensation, Elvid A, is here too. What's up, man? How you doing? So I think we got everybody. If those of y'all who didn't check in and you're lurking, appreciate y'all watching. I know that y'all can't comment whether you're watching on the TV or you're watching on a device where you can't comment, or maybe you're busy, but I appreciate y'all watching. But without further ado, we got a guest here in the back. Haven't really talked to this man in a while, but I love this man. And I love this man because I literally just tweeted him on a whim tonight because I haven't talked to him in a while. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe you should come. He had put out a tweet about the iPhone 15. And I'm like, you should come talk to me about that tonight. He was like, yeah, let's go. Why not? He is the only creator that I know that I can literally ask at the last second and he will come join me. So, welcome back to the show, my man, the legendary Apple Sheep, Mr. Talos of Tech. What's up, bro? How you been, man? What? Oh my! Oh no! Oh man! Oh, that iOS 17, bro. Oh man!
Thanks for having me. Am I like delayed? What's going on? Am I lagging?
Ecamm, or depending on what screen you're watching on, Ecamm is a little behind. So yeah, it might be a delay.
Oh, gotcha. So it looks okay for them though. I'm watching it on my phone. Gotcha.
Yeah, it looks perfect for them. But if you're watching from on our angle, it might be delayed.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you inviting me back, dude.
Man, I appreciate you. Like I said, you're the only person that I can literally ask at the last minute and you'll be like, yeah, let's go. Let's ride.
That's usually the best way to if you try to schedule something out in the future, I'm not going to make it work. But if it's like last second, I can do that.
All right. So I asked you here because I saw you were tweeting about the iPhone 15. I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, do you have the Pro Max or Pro, or do you just have the 15?
I got the latest, not greatest. I got the cheapest, lowest end, the bottom of the barrel 15.
Okay. Let's start there because I think a lot of people after the keynote and when we had some time to think about it, we kind of sat back and thought right though. The update from the 14 to the 15, the base model, is a pretty big upgrade this time around. So you got the 15. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about it.
Oh, it's huge. In my opinion, it makes the 15 Pro feel insignificant. I mean, maybe it feels like a bigger upgrade because the 14 was so bad. Like it was such an insanely small, like no changes to the chip, same
Right.
display, same camera, same design. So when you pile a bunch of like this almost feels like 2 years worth of upgrades, I guess, because we got USB-C finally. Thank you, European Union. We got the 48 megapixel sensor from the pros. We took the sensor from the pro phones. We took the brightness from the pro phones. We got the frosted glass now. It's lighter though, still from the 14 and the 13. Definitely lighter than the 11 I came from. So just a bunch of things all stacked together makes for a very solid, well-rounded, like just no nonsense. Just focus on the things that matter. Don't dwell on the bells and whistles. So I love it. It's great. I just filmed the YouTube video with it, not on it, but
Ooh.
with it.
So, but you have been doing things a little bit differently because you did not have a 14 like as your personal phone. I think you were using an 11, right?
Yeah, yeah. Still got the 11.
So you are going actually technically you're jumping even though I know you used the 14 for review purposes last year, you are
Yeah,
technically
yeah.
jumping from an 11 to a 15. So that has to be
Yes.
quite the jump. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 years between them now. That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
math.
So it's interesting because I saw a headline on Twitter about a couple of weeks ago, and somebody had wrote an article, and the headline was something to the effect of the iPhone is the only phone that you should consider updating every year. And it just made me scratch my head because there's no way in
Really?
hell you need to update, in my opinion anyway, there's no way in hell you need to update to an iPhone every year. Just no way.
No, I agree. Anything really. I can't think of
Right.
any product that you need to upgrade annually. Hmm.
Yeah, it was nonsensical because I've been saying lately that I feel like the iPhone has largely remained unchanged for at least the past decade. I mean, yeah, we got new hardware features
Yeah.
and camera things and different things like that, but the standard way that we use the iPhone has not changed since the OG iPhone, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think I've noticed more big changes whenever there's like a huge design overhaul. Like to me, everything post iPhone 10 is when, okay, you swipe up to go home, you got face unlock, control centers up here. Once you kind of surpass that little barrier, now everything just feels like a slight iteration. And it's still honestly, even though there's 4 generations, iPhone 11 to 15, when I pick up the 11, it's still I feel right at home. It still feels pretty comfortable. It's like, not much has actually changed, but there's little things that stack up if you know what you're looking for. But I feel like we might not in the same way, but we might be hitting another uh, era with that now that we've switched to Type C. So now it's like, here is the port of the future, or do you want to stick with the port of yesterday?
Right.
Some people might want to stick with the port of yesterday because they got tons of lightning cables, CarPlay accessories, and everything. So they're not ready to jump to USB C. But if you are ready to make that jump, I don't know. I don't know about you. I'd like to hear your perspective, but I know a lot of Android people that have suddenly been willing to switch to iPhone now simply because of that. That
I've
was
heard
enough.
about this, and it kind of I don't know, it kind of perplexes me because I mean I guess I can understand it coming from an Android perspective because Android users have
Mhm.
had USB Type C forever. So if
True.
that's something that
They're
kind of
used
made
to
them
it.
want to jump to iPhone, that makes sense because that's one less accessory that they would have to buy if they switch to iPhone. So that would make that jump a little bit
Mhm.
less painful for an Android user. But I don't think that
True.
iPhone users care that much about USB Type C. I would imagine that more
No.
iPhone users are mad that they have to change cables now because they've been dealing with Lightning
Yeah.
for 10 years and now they got to switch to USB Type C. So I think more iPhone users are kind of upset at this, but Android users are probably like, yeah, iPhone, finally, welcome to the 21st century, yo.
Exactly. No, I think you're spot on. Most iPhone consumers are usually like they don't care. They just give me the new thing and I'll get used to it. But now they're like, hold on, wait a minute. Now I got to do something differently. I feel like Apple kind of botched it, honestly. I'm kind of surprised they didn't do more for this transition. It felt like,
Mm,
correct me if you're remembering this differently, but when Apple announced Lightning,
mhm.
or when Apple got rid of the headphone jack, to me, it felt like a big deal. Like they
Yeah.
hyped it up a lot and they said, here's how we're going to process this transition. Here's how we're going to handle it. Here's how we're going to, reduce the e-waste or whatever. And with this, it felt like kind of an afterthought. It felt like, okay, it's there. Let's move on.
I think there are some differences that come with this particular transition. Number one, Apple didn't want to make the transition. They were practically forced to make the transition. Not to mention the fact that they were
but
already...
they should want to. I want them to want to.
But they were forced.
Yeah.
Not to mention that there were already Apple devices out there that are using USB Type-C. So this iPhone is catching up with the iPad and the MacBooks and stuff like that. So it's not like this is the first Apple product that is using Type-C. So between that and them being forced, and you know how Apple is, when they're forced to do something or whatever, they don't want to like bring attention to that and stuff like that. So they kind of just flipped it under the radar. But yeah, I think because it's not something that they kind of inventing and things like that. That's why it kind of flew under the radar with them. They didn't want to bring too much attention to it, although they kind of had to. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad.
I would have liked to see an adapter included.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but we know Apple, they're going to make you buy extra stuff if they have to. So I think all of us have done this at least once in the past week, but I was in my car the other day, and in my car, I have a USB-A to USB-A to Lightning cable because I've been connected to CarPlay for like the past year. So I went to plug the iPhone in, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not going to work anymore. But I also have a USB-A to C cable in there as well because I have an Android too. So I'm like, all right, let me get rid of the Lightning cable. Yeah, I was prepared. So I threw that Lightning cable out of there, just plugged it into the USB-A to USB-C cable, and I was good to go. But I imagine a lot of people had that rite of passage moment this week. They're like, when they try to plug their iPhone into a Lightning port, I'm like, oh no, or a Lightning cable, I'm like, nope, that's not going to work. We have moved on. We have graduated.
Right. Exactly. I'm hoping this is just the last time we have to do this for a very long time. I mean, I'll fight people on this. I genuinely think USB-C could last us like multiple decades. Like now that we've seen Intel announce Thunderbolt 5, that can support like 80 gigabits per second, and we know it's capable of like 240 watts. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to come up with some insane phone features before you tell me that USB-C isn't enough. Like, oh, that port doesn't work, we need something else. It's like, do you need to charge the phone over 240 watts? Do you need more than 80 gigabits per second? Like, let me know why. If you can think of a reason why, let me know, but I can't think of much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're trying to move on from USB Type-C anytime soon, and why would we? It does such a good job for what it is right now. I don't really see the point to try to move to a different port standard. I know Apple have been trying for a while to go to a completely portless iPhone, but we're so far away from that. I don't know when that's going to become a reality, to be honest with you, man.
They gave up on that?
I don't think they
or
gave
is that
up.
Still on the back burner.
I don't think they've given up. I just think that the technology is not there yet. So until that technology is even remotely ready, we're going to continue to ride with a USB Type-C for a while. And much of our happiness, that's what's going on. So hey,
yeah, I would make the bet. Well, not with money, but I'd be willing to predict that Tim Cook will retire before we see a portless iPhone.
Yeah, I would probably make that bet too. So
okay,
you have the 15. I got the 15 Pro Max. So I've had this since launch date, since last week or whatever, and I'm coming from the 14 Pro, so it's a little bit different for me. It's more of an iterative upgrade, but this is almost like the iPhone 11 launch for me. Even though on paper it's not a big upgrade from the 14 to the 15, there are like a bunch of little things with this iPhone that have been refined and improved to make this one of the better iPhones in recent memory for me. The number one thing that you notice with this iPhone from a 14 Pro Max is the weight. Like I'm not a person that thought the Pro Max was heavy. I didn't think it was that heavy, but when you hold a Pro Max in your one hand and you hold this in the other hand, you immediately notice the weight difference, and it's kind of amazing because immediately, right? It's immediately, because it's easy. It makes the phone easier to hold in the hand. Like it's easier. It's not only lighter, it's thinner too. So it doesn't have as much surface area as the previous phone did. So it's lighter, it's thinner, easier to hold. You got the rounded edges and things like that, so it doesn't create that sharp grooves in your hand. So it's just a nice phone to hold in the hand. I mean, we still got the matte frosted back, which is fine, but this phone is easier to hold in the hand, and because of that, it makes it easier to use one-handed too, which I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about, because a lot of people complain about the Pro Max being too big, but now that they kind of shaved a little bit off it kind of lost a little weight and things like that, got a little thinner. It's a little bit easier to use one-handed. Now, does that mean everybody can use it one-handed? No, but it's a little easier. Then you
Good.
throw in there the camera. The camera system is legit. The next generation portrait mode is legit. These are the best portrait pictures that any iPhone has taken. They are going toe to toe with
Wow.
the S23 Ultra. I mean, it's amazing what Apple's done with portrait mode. I'm kind of surprised it took this long, Drew, because for the last 3 or 4 years, all the iPhones have had a lidar sensor on the back of the phone, but we were kind of limiting how that lidar sensor was used for portrait mode. But now I think they are using it full stop, and it shows in the phone in the
Good.
pictures.
Maybe they needed 3 nanometer for some reason, but yeah, I've seen I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
some very impressive shots, and I'm also a lot more curious about the log recording now. I saw This Is Tech Today covering that, and I was fascinated.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a person that shoots and logs, so I'm not gonna ever
Me
go
neither,
down that
but
route. But
I'm
I mean,
curious.
the fact that they have the option on the iPhones, not to mention the fact that you can now record to an external SSD and you can remove files on the phone faster now with the USB port and things like that, makes it a much more
Right.
pro level iPhone than iPhones of the past. Because I think we used to make fun of iPhones having a pro moniker in the past. Can't really make fun of this one too much. It have more pro level features than any iPhone. So I know this is definitely a creator happy phone or a creator centric phone.
Right. I mean, shouldn't they be saying like this is the fastest data port on a phone? I don't think they said that, but I think it
No,
technically is.
I
No?
don't. I don't know if it is or not, but they definitely did not mention that in the keynote. No.
Okay, because I saw a side-by-side test today where they were comparing it to the S23 Ultra, and they said that it was like 3 times the speed, even though
Yeah.
Samsung
Right.
rates it as half the speed. In real-world tests, the iPhone was still faster. So I was like, hey, they should be utilizing this port for more things, although they're doing a lot as is. So it's a decent start for the pros.
The other big thing on this particular iPhone is the titanium rail, which is pretty
Oh,
cool,
nice.
which
Yeah,
contributes to the
yeah.
phone being lighter. Now,
Mhm.
I want to ask you a very personal question, Drew. When is the last time you dropped or damaged any iPhone in your possession?
Last never, I think.
Last never.
I I
Okay.
don't
All
I
right.
just decided at a very young age I'm not gonna break phones. So I'm still I'm still caseless. I
Ooh.
I hate leather cases, I hate silicone cases, I hate
Mm.
fine woven. I hate all cases equally. They're all they're all bad to me. Okay, one exception that I will mention is when I was in middle school, I broke my iPod Touch, but that's not a phone, so you
Right.
didn't ask that. So okay, I dropped an iPod Touch and cracked it, but since then, no, I haven't worried about it. But I have seen some talk about durability concerns.
So our boy Zach from Jerry Rig Everything did one of his durability tests on the iPhone 15 Pro, and he was able to snap it in half with his bare hands. And tech YouTube and tech Twitter is kind of overreacting. They're like, "Oh my god, it's
So
not
is it
that
6
durable."
Plus all over again?
Basically, yeah. And I'm just thinking to
Wow.
myself, nobody is snapping their phone with their bare hands. No one's doing that. Why are we overreacting so much to this test? Like, if you use your phone the way you normally would use your phone, you will not have durability issues with the phone. Now, that doesn't mean you just can't go all willy-nilly because it is a glass phone. So if you drop it on concrete, the phone's going to lose every time. Like, it doesn't matter what they put on the phone.
right.
I don't care if
Glass is glass, right?
glass is glass. I don't care if it's Gorilla Glass or Corning Victus or ceramic shield or whatever the hell you want to call it. If you drop it on concrete, it's going to crack. So that's physics. Physics will go to work if you do that.
Exactly.
So as long as you
So
don't
wait, was
drop
it
your phone on
Zach who
concrete,
snapped it?
yeah, he just went clank, he bended it half,
You
and it started
guys
to crack. Yep.
have you seen that guy?
Yeah.
He could snap anything in half.
Right,
He'd snap
exactly.
me in half, I think,
My
if he
man,
saw
like
me.
6'4", 250, yo, like he's snapping anything he wants to snap in half. Come on now. But
Right, I don't
the
think
point
this
I'm
is
trying
a
to make
good
is that
test.
nobody, I'm not sure why we overreacted so bad to that video because no one's doing that. Unless you sit on your phone. But even
No.
still, even if you sit on your phone, you're not doing it like that. It's just weird.
Right. I mean, I have to be careful. I've gotten into a lot of trouble defending iPhone durability in the past, so I'm not gonna say too much, but I said very similar things when the 6 Plus was having its gate. But yeah, I'm still with you there. I'm like, if it's an expensive phone, don't sit on it. Don't attempt to snap it in half with normal usage. I'm sure it's perfectly fine. But
That's
yeah,
right, Gino. The ground will
away.
always win. The ground will. If you drop your phone, the ground is going to win 100 out of 100 times. Absolutely.
I never got those drop test videos personally.
Oh
Those
my!
never made sense to me.
You know, a couple of our friends went over to Australia to get the first, to be the ones to get their hands on the iPhone first, and they did drop tests. And I love y'all, but why? Why, yo? Why? Why? I don't like. It's just it's the like I kind of get the whole testing durability, but some of these drop tests are so extreme. Like, who's dropping their phone from 10 feet in the air? Like, that's just not gonna happen.
How often?
Like,
Well, I've just never used that information any differently because of
yeah,
exactly what you just said. It was like, if one breaks and one doesn't, okay, I'm still not going to drop my phone. Like,
right.
I'm still going to try to keep it in your hand,
And
keep it in your pocket.
if I do drop
who
it,
cares?
I am 5 feet 10 inches. So the most I'm dropping it from is like what, 60 whatever inches that is. Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not 10 feet. Like it's just not. It's gonna be a 5 foot drop, and it's gonna, like I said, the ground is gonna win every time. Like I know what happens when I drop my phone. It's over with. Okay, because I've dropped the
Yeah, it's
phone
like,
before.
it just feels like they need something to talk about. Everyone needs some kind of
I'm not knocking creators going out here and making video, but I just don't. I've never understood the point of a drop test. Like we know what happens when the phone drops. It's going to break. Okay?
Yeah.
Like unless it's
not gonna
covered in some
change.
type of rugged casing or whatever, the phone is going to break when it hits concrete. That's just what it is. Like it just seems crazy to me. But hey,
This phone.
oh, I know what
which
you're about to. I know what you're about to bring out there. I know what you're about to bring out, y'all. Y'all know what's coming, right? Have y'all seen this phone he's about to show us?
This phone breaks concrete. As you
Y'all
drop.
see that is crazy. Look at that phone. It's like an armored tank. That's like an armored vehicle. Yo. Jesus.
This is what I want Apple to copy. I want a 16 Ultra to be that thick with that much battery life.
Yo, that could be
Where
used
you're
as a
worried
weapon,
about
yo.
the floor.
You could hurt somebody with
You
that. I'm just
could.
saying.
You literally could.
You
It's
could hurt
that
somebody
strong.
with that for sure.
I don't want to do a drop test because I'm worried it's going to break my floor.
It might break your floor. Just don't accidentally drop it on your foot either. That's not a good look at all.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Sheesh.
Okay.
Oh man.
I want to talk to you about the decision that you made. Because I
Okay.
find it very interesting, the decision that you made. You are a tech YouTuber. And it has been the usual tech YouTuber way that we get every new phone every year to cover because the people are interested and we want to get the views. And now you still do that to an extent. But you have stopped using the latest iPhones as your personal phones. Like I said, you've been using an 11
Correct.
now before you got the 15. I'm just
Yes.
curious what led to the decision of you like just stopping chasing the newest thing.
Yeah, it was a lot of thinking about influence because I had felt like a lot of people, normally I don't tell people just straight up, buy this, buy that. I just say, if you're in this situation, try this. If you're in this situation, try this. But I noticed that I would buy expensive, newest this, newest that, and I would want the latest and greatest. And then a lot of people would feel like, oh, well, if Drew's happy with that, then I'll be happy if I do that too. So I felt like I was being this influence on people that was encouraging everyone to buy more than what they necessarily needed. And I was seeing that in my community a lot. And I didn't want people to feel like they had to spend all of this money in order to be part of the community. Because there was still a lot of people out there that were like, I can't justify that expense, or I don't have the money to afford that. And I also just thought it would be more honest to hold on to phones for longer because that's what most people are doing. So if us tech reviewers are trying to analyze and review what the masses are experiencing, then I thought it would be more fair to go with what the masses are using and experience, like, okay, here's issues I found when a phone gets to a certain age, or here's what I'm not having a problem with, or in doing side by sides, hey, some people might actually prefer the older phone for XYZ reason. It has this feature and the new one doesn't anymore. So I think it was kind of natural simply because of what we talked about, the year over year generations are so small.
Right.
So as we quickly are running out of things to talk about with the new phones, I thought it would be more interesting to start covering how are the old phones doing, because there's still a lot of people using them and a lot more people considering the used market, kind of like how cars get more incremental every year. There's a bigger push for you to buy a used car that could be a couple of years older and still have most of the same features, and people want to know how it holds up. So actually, my best performing videos this year have not been about the iPhone 15. My best performers have been on the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 11 or the SE2, or like reviewing phones from a few years ago, that I think there's probably a large number of people that are still rocking, iPhone 8s or iPhone 7s, and they're thinking about upgrading, but they don't got $1,000 to drop. So they go, well, I could find an 11 or a 10 or something used for a couple $100. how is that working today? Is that still going to work in today's world, or is it, is the software so bad it's not worth considering? So that seemed to have captured this new audience that I'm pretty happy with, and I also just think it's good for as a community member to let people know that it's okay to be excited and interested in the new tech, but it's also okay to accept that I don't necessarily need that, and I can live with a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old iPhone, and it still gets me through the day. It still has good pictures. And how does iOS hold up on it all those years later? So there was a lot of thoughts to how to make the channel interesting, what directions to take it in to kind of find a unique, hopefully valuable voice in the community, because there's so many great content creators out there that I could never compete with when it comes to their video quality, their analysis, their how they're able to condense their thoughts down. That's something I really suck at. I can't keep my thoughts short and concise like so many other channels do.
Cut it, Drew.
So,
Cut
yeah. So that's just my new thing I've been trying. I don't know how long it'll last, but yeah, it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you are kind of trying to, or maybe you have tapped into the normal non-tech savvy viewer of your channel, which brings me to an
Yeah.
interesting segue, because I said I wasn't going to broach this anymore, but I saw you making tweets about it. I've talked about it ad nauseum. John Prosser made an entire video dedicated to it. For whatever reason, Drew, around the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, there's been a conversation about how some of the hardcore tech people are upset because the iPhone 15
yeah.
and 15 Plus does not have a 120 hertz refresh rate. And everybody, like all of us, like all the same people who I've been trying to tell these guys that or girls that listen, most Apple customers don't care about a faster refresh rate. They just don't care. That's not why they buy iPhones.
You're right. But they don't want to hear that. They don't want to. They want them to care. They want them to think it's a bigger deal. But or I've heard the argument that it doesn't matter if they notice. It's just if you're paying that much, it should have it anyway.
Right.
I still don't agree with that. But I mean, let me just say from the beginning, I absolutely notice and 100% appreciate 120 hertz.
Mhm.
Like I remember the first day I was begging for that feature for years, and then the first day I walked into the Apple store when the 13 Pros launched, and I was so excited to see it for the first time. I picked up the little demo unit and I swiped up, and I just I fell back. I was like, this is so smooth. It looks so good with OLED and everything. I still love it on my MacBook Pro. I 100% notice it, love it, appreciate it, but I cannot deny the fact that I have tried to show it to countless people in my personal life, and basically none of them have ever noticed or cared. If they did notice, they were like, okay, big deal, like whatever, or they would not notice a difference at all. I showed it to my wife, my cousins, my parents would be like, can you tell which display is smoother? And some of them straight up, I don't think they're lying. They had no motivation to lie. We're just like, no, what's different? Like they can't physically, they can't see it sometimes. And seeing that in the real world and knowing how many other people out there are probably looking at it the exact same way, I think it's the perfect feature for a pro device. It's something that a techie person is going to like and appreciate, and it's easily something to leave out because every year Apple has this decision to make, right? They've got to make a new phone, but they can't make too good because you have to keep some of them cheaper and lower end and some of them more expensive. So every year they're asking themselves, how do we make one of these like more pro emphasis and one of these more everyday consumer emphasis? And I think ProMotion is a perfect example of something that, yes, a pro device could utilize that and an everyday person is not. So let's put it on a higher end device. So I'm not one of those people that's been like 120 hertz should be standard every single display. I'm like, no, it should be an option. But for those who don't care, there should be a cheaper tier, a lower price tier. So I wish we disagreed on this so you could have a more fun debate, but I think I'm preaching to the choir.
It's so funny because when they've been defending this whole the entry level iPhone should have a 120 hertz refresh rate, they are comparing how the $800 iPhone 15 doesn't have it, but a $200 Android phone does. and it's the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. You are really comparing an iPhone, the entry level iPhone, to a $200 Android phone. Do you know how leagues apart they are? Like, what are we talking about
Right.
here, dude? My God.
Yeah, exactly. There's
Oh
the
my
whole
goodness.
iOS can of worms, like,
Yep.
oh, okay, that's a whole different side of things. The Android isn't gonna have the same silicon. It's probably not gonna have the same build quality. On top of that, though, Apple, when they do promotion, they need it to be a variable refresh rate. Otherwise, there's longevity problems, there's burn-in problems, there's brightness problems that all arise if you just cap it at 120 hertz all the time. And people don't like it when I mention this because every time I do, they never have a good counter argument. But I always mention that Apple is constantly trying to get enough LTPO panels, which basically means a display that can dynamically change its refresh rate depending on what's going on. They're trying every year to get enough panels for the Pro iPhones, and they're still running short. They're not able to get enough displays from Samsung, LG, or BOE, which is usually why the Pros get really back ordered. They get pushed back because they can't build enough of them. And now people are like, why don't you bring that to the lower end iPhone too? And it's like, first of all, even if they wanted to, they probably don't have enough suppliers for it. Secondly, I totally get why they don't, because not only would that be a supply chain nightmare, but also very few people would actually notice. So I'm I'm totally with you. It's overrated, like what Marngel's saying.
It's kind of funny because I think some
What is
people
it?
left. Some
Enable.
people left the live stream because we talked about that. It's okay, you all. It's okay. You'll be fine. You'll be all right.
It's all right. It's dinner time.
In
I'm trying
other
to get some
news,
food.
I don't know if you've been paying attention or you were paying attention this past week, but it seemed like the lines at the Apple Store were a little bit longer than usual this year around the world. Um, do you have any thoughts as to why that is? It seems like these iPhones were more in demand this year. Apparently, I'm trying to figure out why.
It's interesting because I saw the same posts that you did where there were like crazy lines everywhere. But I did it in store pickup on launch day, and it
Okay.
was not that bad. It was actually really tame compared to years prior. And I
Mm.
usually go on launch day. iPhone 10 in my history was by far the biggest. That one was absurd. There was
Mm.
like a line out the door. This one, there wasn't that many people in front of me, and I didn't even show up very early. But I do think there's probably it's a great question because all I can think of as to why this is a big year is like techie things. Like, well, it's the first USB-C iPhone, so
Right.
maybe people feel like, okay, this is the new era, the new wave of iPhones. They feel more future-proof with them, I guess. I
Mm.
personally would feel awkward or weird buying a 14 Pro right now. I saw some people in my comments recommending that. They're like, "Oh, don't get a regular 15, get a 14 Pro because that has a better display with the ProMotion." And I'm like, I would not want to be dropping, 800, $900 on a lightning device right now,
Right.
knowing that it's officially like yesterday's tech and we're moving away from that. Like,
Right.
no, I would rather take 60 hertz with USB-C, knowing that that's going to be what all the accessories and all the chargers are moving towards. So maybe that could be it. I'm trying to think of anything else that's out of the ordinary. I guess titanium. They're pushing that hard. It's the
I don't know. I
first
think
titanium
somebody else
iPhone.
has suggested that it might have been a lot of people's 3-year contract were up, and maybe that Apple kind of hit a super
Oh,
cycle.
because the 12 was a big cycle. I
Yeah.
remember that, and that's 3 years ago. That's a decent theory. I could see that being it. Or is there some kind of cultural I'm trying to find a word for it. Momentum with iPhone. Like you talked about how there's YouTubers that'll fly to Australia just to throw a phone on the ground. Like
I,
that gets clicks, that gets
I
views.
mean, I don't know about that, but it does seem like iPhone is gaining market share all across the globe. Like not just in the US
Yeah,
anymore. It's gaining market share everywhere now. So
right.
iPhone
I've
is
seen
becoming
that.
more popular with the younger generation. So maybe there's an element
Mhm.
of that to it as well.
Yeah, I think it could be a combination of iOS being so fluid and optimized, and more people realizing that it's not maybe missing out on as many customization features as it used to compared to Android, and people like maybe the higher resale values, I guess, and people are catching on to that. But it could genuinely just be like there's so much hope and hype around iPhones, even if it's not always justified. Like people are hopeful for there's a big iPhone event coming, there's a big iPhone refresh coming, to the point that even if it's not that big, there's just so much momentum behind the hype that everybody has to go out and buy it and tell you why they hate it. So that brings out big lines and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
I need to talk about it.
Yeah, it was just kind of interesting to me that there had seemed to be a lot. The lines were long this year. It seemed to be more people than ever were picking it up over a year past. I don't know. I just thought that was odd because, to your point, there's not much going on over the 14 to the 15 besides USB Type C, and I don't think that would have drove a super cycle. Like, again, most iPhone people don't want to change cables, so I don't think it's not USB Type C. Most iPhone people don't care about USB Type C, so that could have been it. But I don't know. It was interesting though.
I'm just thinking about how much more boring this would have been if not for the EU.
Yeah, right.
If we had
I saw that
another
tweet. Yeah. Speaking of Apple stuff, you also have kind of cut back on the Apple Watch that you wear. What watch are you wearing these days? None. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I really did not like WatchOS 10. I genuinely could not get past that. I don't know how you felt about it, but the whole side button for Control Center thing, and you swipe up for widgets.
It's annoying. Yeah.
I tried for months to get used to that. I was like, okay, it's a muscle memory. I keep wanting to swipe up. And I couldn't do it. I kept trying, and every single day I would just swipe up and get those stupid widgets I didn't want. And I was just like, I really loved that, being able to swipe between watch faces.
Yes, I'm mad they took that away. Yes.
Why? They didn't even replace it with anything.
Nothing.
They did. And that's a valuable gesture, on such a small screen. There's only so much user input you can have. And that was a valuable, useful one to me. And they just removed it. And in the same way, I'm iPadless now. I sold my iPad because I got tired of iPad OS. I still have my watch technically, but I started wearing it less because it just kept frustrating me. And I was just angry.
Wait. Time the hell out here. You are the legendary Apple sheep, but you just told me you don't update to the latest iPhones anymore. You're going sans Apple Watch, and you don't have an iPad anymore. Are you trying to slowly migrate to Android, Drew? What is going on here, Drew? Answer the question. What's happening here?
No, I mean, I do own an Android technically, right? But if anything, I'm more likely to transition to being like a technological monk or something in the woods without any tech than I am to Android. No, I'm trying to push that narrative of like, it's okay to live with less. Like, I know people out there, I've spoken to a lot of fans that were just saying like, I don't necessarily need a watch, or I can get by without it. Or if this product does not have a specific use case that benefits you, or if it does not bring you joy, then by all means, don't keep it. Like, only keep devices that are valuable and useful. And I've been trying to challenge myself more with that. And I realized, hey, you know what? I'm not grabbing my iPad that much. Maybe someone else who takes notes or draws more can utilize this. So I sold it off, and it's the same thing now I'm feeling about the watch. Is like, yeah, it's valuable, and some people can really appreciate its features, but I don't think I truly am. So I'm going to try to get by without it and see how I do. And so far, it's been okay. There's actually been a couple times recently where people are trying to get a hold of me, and because I left my phone further away, I haven't been getting back as quickly as I should. So maybe I should put it back on. But the watch I do have is not a new one. It's still a Series 7. Okay. And I have no intention. This is actually the first year since the Apple Watch existed that I've not even reviewed a new watch. Mm. I didn't try a 9 or an Ultra or anything.
So contrary to you, this is the first time I've upgraded to the next watch year over year, because I had the Ultra and now I have the Ultra 2. And
wow. That's clean.
To be honest, it's not much of an upgrade. You can barely tell it's the new watch without the watch face. But the couple of things that I do like about the watch, the Ultra, the new chip in it is pretty nice, so it makes things a little faster, snappier. I like the fact that Siri is on device now, so Siri's locked faster if she doesn't have to go out to the internet. So that's cool. And the double tap
Siri,
huh?
You're still using Siri?
On the watch, yeah. But mainly the
Okay,
timers and things
okay.
like that. I don't use it for anything important. per
Okay.
se, But
Yeah, nothing
when I'm at the
important.
laundromat, I need to how long my clothes got to dry and stuff like that. I
Gonna
use
say,
Siri.
you're you're a very patient man because
No,
I
no,
just gave up on Siri. I'm like,
no.
I'm
I
not
would never
talking
use
to
them for
her
anything
anymore.
important. Never that. She can't be trustworthy for important stuff. No, 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 no.
Yeah, it can't be
But it's a nice watch. I mean, I
right.
did it because I was able to get some trading value on my Apple Watch Ultra. So I'm like, you know what? I can trade it in, get
Oh,
the new one
okay.
for half the price. What the hell? Why not? So I did it. I like it. But again, should you upgrade if you have the Ultra one? No, not at all. You shouldn't.
No,
But
you're
it is
saying
what it
do
is.
as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. Do as I say, not as I do. Not worth the. I upgraded so you don't have to. That's how those
Yeah.
videos go.
Yeah. Did you want a new color though, as much as I did?
There were rumblings out there that there would be a black Apple Watch Ultra. I wish that would have been nice. I would have jumped all over it, but nope.
I was
But
shocked by that. I was like, this
yeah,
is the perfect year. Like all they really got going for it is chip upgrades. There's no design overhaul or anything. I felt like, oh well, this is slam dunk, knock in the park. Obviously, do a new color option so that you can all flex on everybody. Look, I got the new one. This is the
right.
second gen. You can't get the first gen. But nope, same
Nothing.
color.
Anybody that has an Apple Watch Ultra can
Dang.
pretend they got the two.
Yeah,
you,
I think I
lose.
read this is the first year. There's literally no, even on the outside, like there's
Nope.
no inscription or anything.
Nothing.
It's dangerous for the resale market.
Do you
You
still
can't
have or
prove.
use your AirPods Max?
No, I didn't. I could. That's lightning, man. I can't. I can't. I can't keep living with that. It's a lightning. I've never been more torn on an Apple product in my life. I've never been more split down the middle. I've never hated and loved a product more than AirPods Max. It's literally like so close to being perfect and yet so far at the same time.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
wish they would update them. I don't know what Apple's waiting for.
why just the pros is my question. Why did the pros get those are
I
the
don't
best
know.
sellers, I guess? But
I guess. Yeah,
what are
I
you
don't.
rocking? Are these Sony's?
Yeah, these are actually the Sony XM3 from 2018.
Hey,
But
good for you. Good for you.
yeah, but I
If
mean,
they
but
work.
I have the newer ones, and I have the AirPod Max in the other room. But I am waiting for them to get an
Oh,
update.
okay.
It would be nice.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I think they gotta support lossless now, right? That's like a must.
well, the thing about the whole lawsuit thing is it seems like they're only supporting it if you have or if you're going to buy the Apple Vision Pro, which is weird.
Oh yeah. Well, wirelessly, yes. I meant
Yeah.
like it as a wired form because I know
Oh
the
yeah,
Beats
yeah.
that everybody hates still have
Oh my god,
lossless.
them
But
things are
there's a way
terrible.
to do
Sorry.
lossless over Type C.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of it. So if Apple's pushing for lossless on Apple Music and everything, and AirPods Max inevitably are going to make the switch to Type C, almost, I hate to use the word, but almost confirmed, right? Because like, I mean, the only edge case I could think of is they either kill it off or it gets Type C. There's no situation where they'd refresh it with Lightning, right?
no, not at all. And
Okay.
they've sold it up because I see them everywhere when I'm in the airport and things like that, and on the streets
Yeah.
and things. The AirPods Max are all over
It's
the place, which is
amazing.
kind of crazy given how much they cost, but they are popular. So there is a opportunity for Apple to update them, and I think they would sell, especially given the fact
Even
that they're
at the
like
same
3 years
price?
old. Yeah, even at the same price.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you're right. I think they're so close to being like the perfect pair of
Yes.
headphones because I think Apple's in a perfect position where they could make the ultimate iPhone listening experience. So it's great for transparency mode, the noise cancellation, and everything.
Mhm.
But then you could also plug it into a Mac and have ultra
Yeah.
low latency, super
Yep.
high fidelity audio, and it could do both. It could be the
Right.
studio headphones and the passive like go
Yeah.
to the airport headphones. But it's that freaking lightning
Lightning.
port, man.
Yo, Don Coben out here about to get canceled by his daughter because he down here. You better sign the contract, Don. You better sign the contract, my dude. Don't get canceled by your daughter, Sign the contract.
We're gonna do Apple Pay later. We're gonna
Right,
get
dude. Do what you got to do, bro. Do what you got to do.
pink iPhone.
Okay, so I got to ask you,
Ugh.
Apple Vision Pro, are you in on Gen 1 or are you sending it out?
Ooh,
Yeah.
this is a can of worms you're opening.
Oh,
for me right
let's
now.
open it, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I know not everybody agrees with me. I wish Vision Pro content did better because I don't know how it is for your channel, but for me, Vision Pro stuff, people don't care. People don't want to talk about it. People don't watch the videos as much. But I'm convinced that Tim's cooking he's onto something here.
Mm.
He's trying to figure out what the biggest threat to the iPhone is. I feel like that's always what Apple's been tackling, is like, what's going to kill our best selling product, and that's how they came to the iPod, and that's how they came to the iPhone, and that's how they, they're always looking at what's going to kill our bestseller. And I don't personally think the Vision Pro will kill the iPhone, but I don't think that means it's not potentially a massive thing. I'm not too obsessed with the first generation. I never think the first generation is ultimately that important. Like, if you based the whole future of the Apple Watch on how good was the first generation, you probably wouldn't believe there's a future for it, because
No,
that first watch was,
it was missing some things. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't water resistant. All the apps were basically just being loaded off of the iPhone, and they took
Yep.
forever to open.
Yep.
There was
The app.
all kinds of it.
Yeah, the Apple Watch didn't pick up traction until Series 3. So
Right. So and usually if you ask someone, you go back, like, what's your favorite iPhone generation? No one says the first one.
no one.
Like,
No.
that's never anyone's. It's always like, oh, the 4 or the 5S or
Yeah.
the 10, it's the iterations where the magic is. And what's most interesting about Vision OS and Vision Pro, I think, is seeing the intentionality. Like, what is Apple's game plan? Because we know, you give Apple enough time, they'll find a way to make something smoother, sleeker, better battery life, better efficiency. They're good at that. And that's pretty much everything we need with Vision Pro, right? We need it to be cheaper, we need it to be smaller, we need it to
Yeah.
last longer. So we know how technology is going to improve on it. But what I'm most interested in is, like, what is this technology aiming for? What is it trying to be? And that's what gets me excited every time I hear Tim talk about it, is like this aha moment, or this spatial computing of having screens and having controls of everything, navigating a UI with your eyes. Hearing Marquez talk about it, because he's a fairly objective guy, in my opinion. He just gets so pumped whenever he talks about his brief experience with it. So I don't know if I'll keep it. I don't think the first generation's that important, but I'm at the same time extremely excited for the future implications, because everything else Apple's working on feels very iterative at this point. Everything else feels very like, okay, slightly brighter, slightly better camera, whatever. But at the end of the day, I go back to my iPhone 11 and I feel right at home, like nothing has changed.
Yep.
Whereas Vision Pro feels like the type of product, for the first time in a long time, where year over year generations could unlock massive new use cases.
Right.
Whereas, like, oh, this new camera looks a little better. That doesn't really unlock a new use case. It's just slightly better. But this is like, oh, well, if we figure out how to integrate the battery pack up here, or we figure out how to look through it, or we figure out how to lower the price and unlock more markets for it, there's a lot of potential there.
So does this mean you're going to buy Gen 1?
I'll probably review, but I don't want to necessarily commit to, like, keeping it and using it for an extended period. But I'm open-minded.
Okay.
I'm willing to let my mind be changed.
You're better
if
than
it
me.
truly
I
goes.
have no anticipation of reviewing or buying Gen 1. Like, I know that
That's
if I
probably
were to buy it,
safe.
if I were going to buy it, it would end up collecting dust. Because I kind of feel like it's no different from my Oculus Quest 2 that's been collecting dust for the past, like, year. So I just
Are
don't
you
see
getting
it.
a Quest 3?
No. I have a Quest 2 and
Okay.
it literally collected dust for like the past year. So
It's literally,
it's
dude,
collecting dust.
I kid you not. I have a list in my phone of things I've thought of for Vision OS.
Wow.
All the
Okay.
potential use cases that they could
Okay.
one day unlock with the right hardware.
Now,
So
to your point though, I do feel like the future is bright for it, but it can't be in that clunky headset that they are introducing next year. That's not it. They got to condense
Exactly.
that down to a pair of glasses or a visor or something, because that headset is not going to be
Right.
it. Nobody's wearing that
I actually
outside.
think some people may disagree with me, but I genuinely think it will find its stride still in the goggles form, not in the glasses form.
Okay. You mean,
Which
but not in the current goggle form? 'Cause that ain't happening.
no. The first generation is honestly meaningless in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things.
Yeah. Right.
All it really is like a exercise for Apple to see if they can mass produce a object with so much complexity. Like, all those cameras, all that LiDAR, R1 chip, M2 chip, it's almost just an exercise. How many units it sells, I don't even think Apple cares that much, because it sounds like they're not even going to be able to build that many.
Yeah, they're not making that
Like
many. Yeah.
the production capacity is for an Apple product incredibly low. I think they're
Yeah.
talking now like 300,000 units
Yeah,
a
I heard
year,
300 to 600,000. Yeah.
which is almost nothing to them. Like when they're used to mass producing things based on the tens of million,
Yeah.
that's like, it's not that important, I guess. It's almost just like we just need to put these. It feels like Apple, when they designed Vision Pro, was like, we just need to sell people on the idea. We don't need to sell them on the product yet. We just need to open their mind. It honestly, I think, would give a lot of people more reason to go to an Apple store again. Like, I feel
Mm.
like a lot of the Apple store magic has kind of been lost. Like
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I used to love going to the S, try on everything, try to play with it. And now it feels like everything's kind of just blurring together. I
Yeah.
know what it's like to use an iPad. I know what an Apple Watch is
Right.
like. But something like Vision Pro,
Yeah.
I think, will actually move people into a store.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's stupid, but let me try it on. Let me see.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
that's
this is definitely
ridiculous.
one of those things where it will bring people into the Apple store for sure. Absolutely. Myself included,
Yeah.
because even though I have no plans on buying one, I do want to go try one out in the store. So I will do that at the very minimum.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So,
I'm open-minded, because I've spent a lot of times on flights. I've traveled a lot, and I'm going to be traveling a lot more in the future. And
mm.
especially when I'm on those, coach planes, you just want to pretend you're somewhere else. So I like that idea. But I'm just trying to visualize, that stupid eyesight display. I hate that. I want them to drop that immediately.
Well, apparently it's not working
The
correctly, so it might not. Who knows if it will ship with them or not, because they can't get it to work right from what I'm hearing. So who knows?
Tim's like, it's still on track though. It's still on track. But I'm just picturing my goggles on the plane, and my head is back, and you just see that little visual on the screen, and then the
Bro,
flight
can I
attendant
just
walks up
say
and it goes,
your whole Tim Cook shtick is hilarious as hell. When you do the kids in your videos, I'm cracking my ass up, man. That shit is hilarious.
thank you. I'm surprised they've lasted this long. My goal was to get everybody to unsubscribe, but they haven't done it yet. So I'm going to keep trying.
So to the point of Vision Pro, there have been a lot of chatter as to whether or not Apple will make a foldable. I personally don't believe they will make a foldable, because I feel like they're too focused on Vision Pro. If they feel like Vision Pro is the next generation of technology, why would they waste time and resources on a foldable phone? What are your thoughts?
That's a good argument. I mostly agree with you. It doesn't change my opinion that they should do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I would buy it. I don't even think it would necessarily sell that good. All I'm saying is, as years go on, now we got USB-C, now we got Dynamic Island on everything, and as years go on, like, I think the rumors are on the 18 Pro, we're going to get rid of the camera's going to be completely underneath the display, all the sensors and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 17s are going to follow, or no, the 18s, 19. Just a couple more years, we're just going to have these glass rectangles that all look identical. How many action buttons can you put on these phones, before we got a QWERTY keyboard back? But at a certain point, if the Vision Pro had if all the headwear doesn't take off the way Apple wants it to, which I think it will be a slow burn. I don't think it's going to catch on as quickly as iPhones or watches, because those are inherently cheaper. They're way easier to market, because you can digest what it's like to, okay, there's a display, I tap on it. That's a lot easier to market than someone doing this thing.
Yeah.
Tapping around. Wow, it's so cool. It's one of those things you really got to try, and then even then it's super expensive. So as Apple runs out of meaningful upgrades to the iPhone, I think they might have to just start getting weird. And that might mean doing foldable stuff, which is like, does it unlock that much more? Does it create a better experience? Not really, but we need something to talk about. I feel like that's where Apple's somewhat headed, is like, if the iPhone continues to be their bread and butter, like, that's what's bringing in all the money. I mean, we all know Apple knows how to charge a premium more than any other brand. Apple dominates the $800 plus smartphone market. Like, it's not even close if you just cut off all the phones beneath $800. So if there was a company that could make foldables ultra popular, it's definitely Apple with, an iPad OS slash iOS device all combined into one. $2,000. You'd see the Apple sheep complain about Android phones that are $2,000, but then if a Apple foldable came out, they'd be like, well, 2,000, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty cheap. That's pretty good. I wanted a Pro iPad Mini anyway, so this is 120 hertz on a mini iPad. I guess it's what I wanted. So yeah, save myself
Yeah.
some money. Instead of buying a phone and an iPad, I'll combine the two.
Again, like I said, the whole Apple making a foldable, I don't know. I mean, to your point, if they can't get Vision Pro off the ground, then maybe, but I just don't see the benefit that Apple would get from making the foldable device. Like, they got iPhones that are killing the game.
Oh,
They got
yeah.
their iPads are killing the game. Here's the thing though. The reason why foldables exist is because the Android OEMs are so far behind Apple that they needed something to shake up the market. And foldables, and that's the truth, in my opinion. Anyway, that's the truth.
You're right.
And
It's funny because it's true.
right, and foldables have done that to a little bit of extent for the Samsungs and the Googles and the Huawei, but Apple doesn't need
You had
the
a
foldable.
Pixel Fold, right? You still
Yeah,
have it?
I do. Yes,
How is it? How do you like it?
I like it. The Pixel Fold, I love the form factor because it's almost like a passport per se. The Samsung Fold,
okay.
I feel like they're too tall and too narrow, but the Z Fold 5 is the best foldable out there on the market right now. It's better than the Pixel Fold because it does so much more right as far as foldable software and different things like that. But the Pixel Fold is definitely a good first attempt from Google. I hope they keep it up and make second and third generation because I think they're onto something. But we know how Google lives with commitment, so I don't know. But
yeah. Apple could do the whole folding phones just got real. They could be marketing it like they invented it. I mean, can you admit that if Apple did hypothetically make one, that it would probably sell like crazy?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Compared to all the other foldables,
easily.
They would probably get a noticeable bump on their earnings reports from iPhone revenue. So I just think almost for the shareholders, they should make one because you and I know that the folding phones aren't necessarily unlocking that much more experience or they don't really change that much, but they'd probably drive clicks. There'd be a lot more to talk about with the new iPhone if it's folding phone or, okay, guys, we're now on the 2 nanometer architecture, and now there's a 100 megapixel sensor. How many? I mean, they did aluminum, now they did steel, and now they're doing titanium. What's next? Vibranium iPhone, carbon fiber iPhone. Like, how many new things can they think of? They might be pushed into a corner that forces them to fold. Jerry Rig Everything would love it. He'd get a great video out of it.
Before I move to the next topic with you just reminded me. Have you ever had any heating issue with any of your iPhones at all?
Nothing. I mean, there's times where, like, just earlier I recorded like a 15-minute video that was 4K at 60 on my iPhone. It gets hot, but I haven't gotten to the point where it's so hot that it can't charge or it's so hot that it shuts down. I mean, I've had phones overheat just from sitting in the car in the sun, but nothing like the stories I've been reading where people are just doing normal stuff on the phone and it just gets crazy hot.
Yeah, so this 15 Pro Max has gotten a little warm. I wouldn't say it's overheated per se because it still functions normally, but sometimes when I'm scrolling through the Photos app or just doing basic things, it does get a little warm. I don't know what's going on with that, but I have noticed it more than any other iPhone I've had in recent memory, so I think there's a little bit something to it. But again, I'm not going to rush out and overreact. Or I don't feel like I need to go get this replaced because it's just not that serious. But I have noticed this one being slightly more warm than my other iPhones I've had. So not sure what's going on there.
Have you followed Max Tech's coverage of it at all? I think he has some theories.
No.
I think, I just see his tweets from time to time. But I've seen the argument that the A17 Pro is like the highest wattage chip they've ever shipped in an iPhone.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, right.
So there's some theories, I guess, that it's in order to impress the media, they're clocking it really high, but in order to get the thermals under control, they're going to have to underclock it in a future update, and that'll
that seems to be what Apple's going to do.
Control. But this is another thing now that I'm not liking titanium as much because I know it doesn't dissipate heat as efficiently. So another point to aluminum that titanium.
The titanium.
Is yours fingerprinty?
Let's see. Not that much.
Yeah. See, yours looks great. Which color? Yeah, that's the white titanium.
This is the white titanium. Yep.
So that's the one I wanted. I was like, I'll probably check out a Pro Max later in the year. When I do eventually check one out, that's the color I wanted to get. So that's
Ah,
a clean look. I've seen the fingerprints are like crazy on the blue ones and the
yeah.
darker
But
shades.
I mean, again, that's another thing that I feel like a lot of people are overblowing. Just wipe it off with a microfiber cleaning cloth, y'all. It's not that big of a deal.
I agree. Yes, it's not that big a deal, but I feel like you earn the right to get a little picky when it costs more.
Mm,
I'm like, that
yeah,
material literally costs more than aluminum. So at
yeah.
this point, if aluminum means better thermals, less fingerprints, just make it out of aluminum. Like, do people really benefit from the titanium? It also seems like there's not a ton of durability advantages either. So,
Yeah, that's the big thing right now. I mean, it
well,
does. It does I think that the titanium would allow them to decrease the weight of the phone, but I mean, at the cost of
true.
durability, I don't know.
But
Uh,
if I mean, I wasn't in favor of steel either. So I'm like
ah,
whatever's lighter. I just maybe it's not as bougie to use aluminum on all the models, but I would be okay with that.
interesting. So Jason says it gets hot on the upper left on the back. Interesting. Well, I mean that's where the camera is. That's literally where the camera is. So that makes sense. And that's
Right.
another thing. It does get warm if I'm taking like a lot of photos in a row. It does get a little warm, which is the weird. Again, I'm taking photos, I'm not taking videos, so I don't know what's going on with that.
I
But
don't I mean, I'm definitely not the person to comment on this, but isn't that close to where the SoC is, like the A chip?
I
I
am
think
not
it's up pretty
sure.
high.
Might be. I mean, it will make
So
sense given all
that would
the
explain.
the
Yeah,
image signal processing the camera has to do. So yeah, that might make sense.
it could be.
Yeah. Okay, I need your help with something. Um, so Apple, obviously the most popular company in the world, or at least in the U.S. Every time I'm out in the street, Drew, iPhone, AirPods Max. Everybody
Yeah.
has everything Apple, at least in this country. And I thought to myself the other day, Drew, how the hell did Apple get to this level of what do you want to call it? Uh omnipotence, or what do you want to call it? Omnipotence, whatever the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
is. They're everywhere.
Status.
Yeah, even like when Apple puts things up for pre-order, we go out, we get it, and then we immediately rush to Twitter to show the receipts of what we brought and how much we spent and different things. Nobody does it for any other company but Apple. Only Apple can get a bunch of nerds to go to Twitter and show their receipts. Like, and I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking about all this, right? About how popular iPhone is, about how much of a
Mm.
status it is to buy something Apple and then show off the receipts on Twitter and different things like that. How the hell did Apple get to this? Because at this point, Apple is no longer a company. They're almost like a deity, in my opinion, at least in the U.S. I can't say for other parts of the world, but in the U.S., Apple has been deified.
It's
It's
a
crazy.
lifestyle.
Yes. How did we get here, Drew? Did you? I could obviously it
That's
started
a
with the
great
iPod,
question.
but it
Yeah,
was one thing to go from the iPod to Apple everything and everywhere. How do we get here, Drew? Do you have any
I
thoughts about this?
think
I'm curious.
ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah,
That's a I'd like to unpack that, I guess. I think a
please.
lot of it probably comes from legacy, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they've been around for a long time and they've been fairly consistent with their ideology
Mm-hmm.
behind like if you're serious about software, make hardware, and they're a design company. They're all about designing the software, designing the hardware, and having it mesh well together. And even from the beginning, even back in the 80s and 90s, Apple was founded kind of on this let's bring advanced technology, state of the art computers to the everyday person. Like that was the personal computer that like Steve and Steve worked together on to bring to the masses. Like how do we take this industrial business machine kind of business and put it into like everyday households? How do you make it so grandma can use it? How do you make it easy? How do you make it simple? Which is, I guess, a deeper ideology of just efficient design. Like how do you make it capable, practical, and also easy to use? And I think a lot of companies do that now, but they're all probably following in Apple's footsteps, that ideology of how do we make a computer accessible and easy to understand. And
Right.
and every year basically we all flock to these events and we flock to the hardware and software to see how is Apple going to make life easier, how are they going to solve some other problem, how are they going to improve on what they've already done, um, which typically involves like how do you make it faster, how do you make it cheaper, or how do you make it more practical or more utility focused, how do you make it solve more problems. So I guess it's just that they're like the epitome of user-friendly tech, and they've just been kind of known for that for so long. And I think that there's a certain amount of brand reliability. People feel comfortable buying a new product category if they know it's from Apple, because they know it's going to work well with their other products, and they know it's going to be somewhat intelligently designed and somewhat convenient and easy to get their head around, and they feel like they can trust. It's a brand they can come back to and know what they're going to get. They know it's probably going to be expensive, but it'll feel nice in the hand. It'll feel high quality. So there's some legacy there. There's some ethos there that all just kind of creates this mesh. But I also feel like while I see Apple products everywhere, I also see Apple hate everywhere, which is kind of fascinating. It's like even people who use Apple products hate Apple products all the time. I'm probably a good example of this. people are, when I defend Apple, people are like, "Oh, you're just a blind Apple sheep." And then when I say bad things, they're like, I complain about Apple more than any other company on my channel, honestly.
So,
But
okay.
I'm still using their stuff.
I want to unpack that because I feel like that's another interesting point here. So you said you see Apple hate everywhere. I don't know if I see it everywhere. I do see it on YouTube and sometimes on Twitter, and I see it mostly from Android users. But there's also been this thought among a lot of people in the tech Twitter sphere that Apple doesn't get criticized nearly enough. They feel like some tech YouTubers and the media protect Apple. And I'm just curious, maybe there's some of that to it, because if we don't criticize them and we make them out to be all godly and all
Right.
perfect, then that might
no
project itself on the mainstream, and that's why Apple might have the status that it has today. So could there be an element of that to it? Could they be right that we don't criticize Apple enough?
I agree. Yeah. I think some people might not totally agree with my perspective on this, but I'll just say that many content creators and influencers are basically heavily financially motivated to stay on good terms with Apple. Like not because Apple's paying them.
Right.
Yeah. Not Apple doesn't sponsor channels. I've never seen that before,
No, they
as far
don't.
as I'm aware. I should be getting paid if they do that. But like they definitely keep, I call it Tim Cook's nice list. There's a certain group of channels that get invited to things and get stuff early, and if you're in that nice list, you get stuff early, and your videos have an inherent advantage on everybody else who's not on that list. So it's not entirely Apple's fault. I understand why they wouldn't want to send review units to people who make their products look bad. That doesn't make financial sense either. So I don't blame Apple for not sending me units. I don't think they should. Like, financially, that would not be a good move for them, because I'll probably unbox it and say, I don't like this, and you shouldn't buy this. And they wouldn't want that brutal honesty, or they wouldn't want someone that paints a new product in a bad image. They want someone who's going to try to treat it as fairly as possible, but simultaneously is still trying to push a narrative that there is a market for this product. Here's what the market is. Here's who should be buying this, instead of, making a video just saying, don't buy this. Not worth it. It's waste of time, waste of money. Don't get it. So there's definitely, I think, a little bit of influence there where a content creator would feel like, well, I got this embargo, or I got this contract with them. I don't want to tick them off. I don't want to get kicked out. So I'm going to try to be nice about it. I don't want to be too critical. I don't think it's necessarily something in the contract that says you can't say anything bad, but
right.
There's probably some skewed perspective a little bit there. And I'm okay with that personally. I don't think that's wrong.
Like I said, you're the second person who's told me something to that extent in the last week or so. And my thought process about that is, I don't think there's any creator that's going to risk their integrity to protect Apple, or any brand for that matter. I just don't see it. And I think I put something like that out on Twitter not too long ago, and some people came back with the rebuttal that you don't see any of the bigger creators criticizing Apple. And I had to remind them that Marquette Brownlee literally sat in Steve Jobs Theater the day of the keynote and was making fun of them for how they were marketing things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would go so far as to say
true.
that Apple doesn't get criticized by these bigger creators. Marquette will absolutely give them the business that they need the business, okay? But the thing about it that I feel like a lot of creators don't understand is that there's a way to criticize a brand and do it constructively that won't get you in the brand's target hairs, okay?
That's true. Right.
And
That's
Andrew,
fair.
this is something that Andrew Edwards told me like years ago. Apple doesn't mind being criticized by creators or anybody else as long as you do it fairly and you're giving accurate information. It's one thing to be
Right.
negative for the sake of being negative. That stuff will absolutely get you blacklisted. But if you are constructive in your criticism and it's something that is true and accurate, and maybe you are offering solutions along with your criticism, then Apple will definitely allow that because that's fact. You can't mess with fact. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily like that black and white. I think there's some gray area in there, but like could a content creator still be saying what they believe and still be telling the truth? Yes, but could the tone they take or the emphasis they take be slightly more optimistic because they're worried about that relationship? It's not like the whole video is a lie. It's not like they're not saying what they believe, but it's also a little bit different if there wasn't that relationship there. Could they have gone a little harder? Could they have dogpiled a little bit more or been a bit more passionate like I tend to be, where you're a little crazy or go off the rails, or just take a very definitive stance of just like, no, there's no market for this, or just there's no argument as to why you should buy this. Like you might not get those little edge cases. You might not get as much passion because there's that business relationship. But I don't think it's necessarily like they're not giving up their integrity. There's just a little bit of underlining skew, just a tiny bit more like, okay, I'm not going to emphasize that there's no market for this. I'm just going to say that the market that is there for this might not be very big. It's just how was it articulated could be, but I do think you're right. I don't think overall a content creator wouldn't compromise their entire perspective just to maintain a relationship. But I mean, I do think bigger ones probably have more power. Like if Marquez did say something negative and then wasn't invited back, that would probably create more drama than what Apple would feel. That would create bad PR for Apple. Whereas if there's a much smaller content creator that we don't all know as well that gets booted off, it's not going to be talked about as much.
Right.
It would just be like, well, you just went one time. It wasn't that big a deal. So, it's if you get to a certain size, you can kind of say whatever you want, I feel like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you're Marquez or even a Not Just Thing, I don't mean you can pretty much run your business how you run your business. But I just find it fascinating that as we talk about all of this, all of it has led to Apple being kind of elevated in the mind's eye. They definitely have the mind share of the U.S. market. And again, it's not just the U.S. market; they're growing in other markets outside of the U.S. too. So it's just like, how is this happening? Like, how is this one company gaining so much market and mind share at this rate? Like, it's like exponential. Like, what Apple was back in the iPod days is ridiculously different from what they are today. Again, back to what I was alluding to earlier. We are running to Twitter with receipts when they put things up for pre-order. Like, we will literally have an item by item of what we brought and how much it cost and what the total was. We do that for no other company but Apple. And then iPhone Keynote Day is the most watched tech event every year without fail. And again, Apple's not the only tech company out there, but their iPhone keynote is the most watched event every year. I think there was like over 5 million people watching it live this year. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy.
Well, and I don't even feel like this is a hot take to say this, but I feel like Apple's events and presentations are just objectively better and cooler than everybody else's. And it doesn't even have to do with the product. Like, I've seen Apple unveil very boring products, and yet they still make it way more interesting and way more professional looking than any other tech company I've ever seen. Like, Google keynote, Samsung keynote, Meta keynote compared to an Apple keynote is like
night and day.
Yeah, it doesn't compare. Not the numbers, as you said. The Apple brings in way more viewers, and also just the quality of it. Because I think a lot of tech companies, whether they would admit it or not, acknowledge that Apple kind of decides what is a big thing or not. Like, other companies may do different things than Apple, but if Apple doesn't enter the field, then the field doesn't really count for
it doesn't get legitimized.
Market.
And I think it goes back to what you said earlier when you called them a lifestyle company, and I think that's probably the answer that I'm looking for that I just didn't realize we stumbled into. But They are a lifestyle company, and when you become a lifestyle company, your sphere of influence go beyond tech. Because you got the tech people and the people that watch YouTube and the tech events, but then there's the market, the normal average consumer out there, and even the normal average consumer is aware of Apple and when Apple holds an event. I don't think the regular average consumer is aware when Samsung is holding an event. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But they know when Apple's holding an event.
They don't even know what number they're on.
Right, and like Apple events make mainstream news. Nobody else makes mainstream news when an event is besides Apple. They're the only tech company when there's an iPhone event, it's on mainstream news, yo. Like, and again, it just goes back to my question: how did Apple get here? Because they wasn't always like this. But over the past 5-10 years, Apple has just elevated into a completely different genre of company, and it's just crazy to see this play out.
Yeah, Tim's honestly done an amazing job keeping the company relevant for this long, considering he had such, Steve Jobs, which was like kind of one in a century type innovator. And he was able to carry that legacy, continue it, and not diminish it. In fact, grow it. Like you said, iOS is growing market share. It's quite an amazing feat of business management, engineering, and all that. I don't think he gets enough credit personally, but I think what's interesting is like everything you just said about how they're a lifestyle brand and they've gotten so popular, and yet Apple is pretty much never, I can't think of a single time where they're like first to something.
Right.
Apple's pretty much never like, we're the first to come up with this. They iterate on existing tech. They weren't the first smartphone. They weren't the first tablet or the first smartwatch, or they're definitely not the first headset.
I think they were first to remove the headphone jack, though, or one of the first, anyway.
that was Motorola, actually.
I remember. I knew it wasn't the first, but they were one of the first. Yeah, when Apple did it,
no one got angry until Apple removed it.
Yeah, right. But yeah, to your point, you're right. They've never been first to anything per se.
So they're the mainstreamer. And I think that's why so many people, like even every day, like they talk about the iPhone event on Good Morning America. They don't talk about the Galaxy S phones on GMA and stuff.
Not even.
But like Apple, I think, has just been kind of known as we're the ones who mainstreamed the smartphone, which has been such this disruptive, influential tech that's changed countries everywhere. Like it's just fundamentally changed the way we do business, the way we communicate, the way we do payments, the way we do business. Everything's just fundamentally changed because of these dang phones everywhere. And Apple's kind of the one who didn't necessarily make all of them per se, but they are the one that kind of mainstreamed it and showed all the other companies, here's how you do it, because smartphone design did fundamentally change heavily after the iPhone.
Yeah. Daniel said when he was younger, he used to camp outside of Apple stores overnight to get the latest and greatest, but Drew's right nowadays, it's not about having the latest.
Well, yeah, it's like a car, I feel like. In the early days, it was this brand new category that we hadn't seen before, but now it'd be like, let's compare the Toyota Camry from 2024 to the Camry from 2023. It's like there's probably a little difference here and there, but
you know what?
It's so dang small.
Don, you bring up another good point. Apple has done an amazing job of going just beyond the iPhone, because obviously the iPhone is the catalyst of what they have done to get to where they are. But things like Apple Pay, we don't even talk about Apple Pay nearly enough, but Apple Pay is now the standard for mobile payments. I even saw a tweet a few months ago about how an Android person got mad because when they walked into an establishment and they pulled out their phone to pay, the cashier said, Apple Pay. And the Android person was like, no, this is Samsung Pay. But the cashier doesn't care. The cashier saw it. And since Apple Pay is the predominant branding for mobile payments, that's what the cashier recognized it as, Apple Pay.
Yeah.
But just things like that.
Things
like that, right. Again, Apple was not the first with mobile payment. Google was the first with mobile payment.
Oh, no. They were super late to NFC, I remember.
Yeah,
back in the day, everyone was complaining, where's NFC? Where's NFC?
Yep.
And it's that classic marketing. I kind of meme about it because it's funny to me, but there's also some truth to it. The whole, when Apple did 5G just got real.
Right. Oh, God. Oh, my Lord. How many times did they say 5G in that presentation, though? My God.
That was... We're bringing 5G. That was 5G, Tim's middle finger to the Android industry. I'm like, y'all have been playing around with 5G for years, but it doesn't matter because we just started, so that means it's real.
No, it's real.
I'm like, that's I'm gonna apply that to more Apple categories. Lossless just got real. USB-C just got real.
And to Mike's point here, the AirPods, they weren't the first wireless earbud, but they pioneered that entire industry. Like, if it wasn't
Oh
for
yeah,
AirPods, the truly wireless earbud space would not be what it is today without AirPods. That can't be
right.
understated. Like, that can't be overstated. That is what that is.
That was a huge deal. I
It
remember
was.
when I was desperately asking long before they announced them. I loved Bluetooth headphones. I was using Bluetooth headphones before AirPods, and I was just like, this is great. I don't like the wire. I just want Apple to make a pair because all the third-party ones I felt like didn't have that same, I like the earbud design more, and I wanted the Apple earpod style. And when it finally came out and there was no wire connecting them, I was just like, you could do that? That's possible? It blew my mind. So I was day one, like I remember the morning because it wasn't like a pre-order period for the first AirPods. They weren't
Right.
like they go on sale today. It was just at some point the Apple Store website was going to update and you were just going to have to pre-order right then and there. And I woke up like 5 minutes after the site opened and I tried to reserve them as quickly as possible. I was like, come on, get them. And they were back ordered for months. Everybody wanted those things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Again, I mean, I don't think that I will ever see another company in my lifetime achieve the height of popularity in the mainstream that Apple has. Like, what they've done over the past 2 decades is just nothing short of incredible. Like, my God. I mean,
Yeah.
who would have thought that we would have gone from iPod to this? Because I think iPod is where it started, right? Because that was the thing that really got Apple into the mainstream. The
First
iPod,
pocketable,
yep,
yeah,
music
computer.
player. We all were
Uh-huh.
on top of that, and then they just took it and made iPhone, and then the rest is history. Like, damn. And
It's gonna be really
yeah,
challenging to top that, yeah, in our lifetimes, but I don't know, never said no one would have predicted it, I guess, if you were watching that young company get started.
oh
You
yeah.
wouldn't have thought that
I
was gonna
mean,
change the world.
the other thing that's crazy is that Apple went bankrupt. Microsoft actually saved Apple from bankruptcy, which is
That's
crazy when you
right.
think about it. Yeah,
Yeah, they were very close to dying.
yeah.
That's true.
Microsoft got them out. Oh
Mhm.
man, well man, it is always amazing talking to you. Any last thoughts that you want to get out, or any questions you got before we
Oh,
get out of here,
yeah,
Drew?
sorry to bring it back, that was a big topic, but this is a smaller topic. How do you feel about the, Tetra Prism telephoto on the Pro Max? Is it overrated, underrated? Like, how's it
No, the 5 times zoom is legit, especially when you use it for
you like
portrait
it?
pictures. For portrait
Oh,
pictures, oh
yeah.
my god, it is. Woo! It is.
Okay,
It is up there with the S23 Ultra. It is good. It is very good.
okay. So how do you feel about, because I thought with a periscope rumored and stuff, they were gonna go further than 5x. Do
I
you
was
think
hoping, yeah.
5x is, like, the sweet spot, or do you think they should go more?
I think here's the thing, right? So obviously, we've been talking about all night how Apple has never been the first to anything. Samsung
Right.
has been doing 100 times zoom forever, and we know that 100 times zoom is garbage. Nobody can use it. But 10 times optical zoom is great. But to be fair, just to bring it back to base here, not a lot of people are going to get use out of a 10 times optical zoom, no matter how good it is. So to your point, I do believe that 5 times is a sweet spot. I think
Okay.
there are rumors that it would be 6, but we ended up at 5. I don't really
Mhm.
think you're going to need much more than 5 because you're not going to need to zoom in that much to most things. No, not really. But it's good.
Yeah,
It's very good.
I'm with you there. I've been actually, even though it's not technically optical, I've been very impressed with the zoom capabilities on the 15 with just a
Hmm.
48 megapixel because you don't have that jarring little cut when you're zooming to the telephoto and you get
Right.
that dip and the aperture changes and the noise
Hmm.
changes. And I'm like, no, it's just this smooth, gradual
Yeah.
transition now. And because there's so many megapixels, you can keep it in 4K as you're zooming in. I'm like, that's smart. It shouldn't be called optical zoom, but I also don't think it should be called digital zoom. Zoom and enhance, I think, might be the right term.
Mm.
It's that someone called it retina zoom. I think I don't know if Apple called it that, but it's a nice little sweet spot in between. But before you sign off, my last maybe this is my I might have more. How do
Feel
you
free.
feel about the camera bump design being the same this many years? Are you ready for a change up, or are you more like you find the way it is?
All right. Before I answer that, I'm only
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
only trying to wrap it up because I'm not trying to keep you too long. So if you got more time, we can go. We can talk more. I don't have a problem
No,
with
I'm
that.
good. I need to know. I need to know your
Um,
perspective.
Here's the thing. I look at my phone like this. And because I look at my phone like this, I don't notice that. So I don't even think about it. Besides, I have a case on here anyway, so that kind of
Oh, okay.
hides it too. But the
Yeah.
camera thing doesn't bother me. What bothers me about Drew about iPhone is iOS and how iOS have largely remained unchanged. That's what bothers
Yeah.
me. Like I have the iPhone 15
Right.
Pro Max, and I'm doing the same stuff I was doing on my iPhone 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right.
Like the way that we use the phone has largely remained unchanged since the original, and I need a change. But that's why I have
You've
Android. Like
always been the split screen guy.
yeah,
You
I mean,
always wanted
again,
split screen.
and to that point, I now know that I don't even use split screen that much on my foldables or my S23 Ultra, so it's not that big of a deal anymore. But just to
Okay.
have something different from what we normally are accustomed to with iOS would be nice. Again, I guess
Okay.
for me, that's why I have Android, because I got my folds and I got my S23 Ultra. So if I want that different experience, I can go to my Android. But it would be nice to have something different on iPhone, because again, the fundamental experience, the fundamental user interface has largely remained unchanged. And to me, it's getting
Yes.
stale. It's beyond stale. I need something new. But I don't think. But to what we've been talking about today, I don't see Apple changing it because it keeps selling millions year over year. Why? If it ain't broke, why would you fix it?
That's true. We're encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing by
Yeah,
going out and
by
buying these
buying
phones
them every year. Yep.
I had a big feature request with the whole rumored Thunderbolt edition, which didn't end up happening, but that was the closest I could think of like a fundamental difference in software like overhaul, because with the read and write speeds being sub 10 gigabits per second, I was like, okay, Thunderbolt on an iPhone is going to be pointless for file transfer unless you have some revamped external monitor support thing. So the idea I've been bouncing around in my head for a while now, because I often will use the continuity camera on the phone,
Right.
mounted up, it's your webcam. I was like, if we could get to a point where via Thunderbolt, the phone could boot up into some desktop like experience, whether that's, Apple Dex, as I like to call it. Dex just got real. But if maybe it's Mac OS, or maybe it's just like Stage Manager type big apps on a bigger screen, and now the Apple could be like, the best Mac is the one you have with you. You just dock it with all these different monitors, and via Bluetooth you got a keyboard and a mouse, and boom, now it's your desktop. And then when you're ready to go, you just unplug and keep moving along. Because I've seen the A17 Pro performance is nearing M1 chip level.
Right.
I'm sure it's possible to boot Mac OS off of that chip. There's nothing physically preventing that from happening. They've got enough RAM, they've got enough CPU performance. So
I mean, I hear you, and to your logic, it will make sense for it to be able to do that stuff on iPhone. But Apple has always seemed hesitant to add those type of features to iPhone. Like if you want more advanced pro level stuff, I think they want you to buy an iPad. And if you want even more pro
Right.
advanced stuff, they want you to buy a
True.
MacBook. It seems like
Yeah.
they are hell bent on keeping you into the device that they want you on for that purpose. They don't want to make the iPhone any more iPhone than it needs to be. They don't want to make the iPad any more iPad than it needs to be. Which I don't know why, because Steve Jobs was the one that said that they want to cannibalize their own sales. So even if you make a device
Right.
that's kind of a hybrid, you're still going to sell it. All the money going back to you, Apple. So what difference does it make? But I don't know. It seems like they want to make iPhone, iPad, and MacBook, and they don't want to really intertwine those for whatever reason. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's more recent Apple seems to be more paranoid about cannibalization than the Steve Jobs era, because iPhone was definitely eating into iPod sales.
Oh yeah.
Everybody who had an iPhone had basically no reason to buy a iPod at that point, because the phone did everything the iPod could do and better. So the way I see it is, at this point, Apple just needs to try to think of new features, new things to market. And if they come up with some, desktop experience that the iPhone can power, but you have to buy some studio display, blah, 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 for it to work. Now they convince everybody to go out, or, like, you can software lock it as much as you want. They already do that, right? So I'm like, maybe it's only on the Pro Max, or the Ultra, only the iPhone Ultra can do this. So you have to buy the $1,400 iPhone, and then you have to buy the $1,600 monitor. Are they going to care that you didn't buy $1,000 MacBook if you spent $3,000 on this
Right.
iPhone experience? So
Right.
I'm like, if all the money's going in the same direction, I don't think they care if it cannibalizes. But that argument doesn't work with things like the iPad, because clearly the iPad could be doing way more than what
Way
it's
more.
doing,
Yeah.
but they don't let it because, well, we don't know. But everyone just keeps saying, well, it's because they don't want it to eat into Mac sales. And I'm like, the iPad costs way more than the Mac does. So
Seems like it,
who
yeah.
cares? Like, if it eats into the sales, then great. They made more money, right? Like, who
Right.
cares if whenever people say that, I always say the iPhone killed the iPod sales. So like, why are we worried about that?
I don't know. While I have you here, though, I almost forgot to
Hmm.
ask you. I got to ask you about the Tesla. So I think you've owned it
Oh
for
yeah.
like 2 years now. 2 years, 3 years, maybe.
Almost, it's been over a year, not quite two, but yeah.
Okay. So you've done videos about other companies besides Tesla. You got the Lucents, you got the Rivians, you got the company start with an A that's doing different things now.
Aptera, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That company. Do you ever see yourself moving away from Tesla?
At this point, I'm pretty sure my next EV will not be a Tesla.
Ooh,
But
interesting. Okay,
there's a lot to unpack with that
it
answer.
is. I'm here for it.
uh,
Let's go. What you got for me?
I mean, on one end, it's mostly just because I'm very satisfied and very content with the Tesla I have now,
Mm-hmm.
and there's really not much about it I would change. It's got plenty of range, and the charging is great, and it's reliable, and it's got plenty of space for our needs. So I'm happy with that. But the next EV I would consider would be more like from a company like Aptera. I would want something that can do fundamentally a different task. Like, I'm not just looking for the same car, but with slightly better this or slightly better that. And the Aptera is just kind of the closest I can see as a company that's being more innovative and trying to have a more radical approach towards the market. And I feel like a lot of the EV market is very redundant and repetitive. Everyone's just trying to make a different SUV, and all these SUVs kind of blur together for me. It's like, okay,
Right.
look, it has a hatchback with storage, it has
Mm.
okay range and some buttons, and I'm like, I don't need a whole new car just for that. I'm fine. Um, I'll check them out. I've checked out Ionic 5s and Polestars and all that, but I'm more interested in like a fundamental rethinking, because I think the EV I have right now is great for our needs, but Aptera is the one tackling more of the whole like solar charging, extremely high range, um, and they're planning on having CarPlay as well, which I've always wanted to try, but Teslas don't have CarPlay. So they're in startup mode, I know, and we don't really have a timeline on when they're going to be available. But I have a reservation for an Aptera, but I don't have a reservation for anything else.
I thought
Nothing
you.
else that I've seen looks interesting.
I thought you did a interview with their CEO or somebody from that company not too long ago.
Yeah, that was surprising. So if I'm a little biased, that might be why. It's because they're like the first company that's been willing to play nice with me. That's like they're
So how
willing
did that
to
happen? Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you?
uh I think they reached out to us. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was a few different communications we had back and forth. There was like a Discord that I communicated with one of their head of marketing, and then we talked with him for a while. Whenever he was just a super nice guy named Chris McCannon, that basically just said, if you have any questions about the company at all, nothing's off limits. Just ask away. He even gave me his personal phone number and stuff. So I was just like, wow, thanks. This is great. And then along the way, as we were talking about, how things are going, he was like, hey, and if you ever want to talk to our chief of design, let us know. So we talked to the chief of design. And then after that, he was like, well, if you've talked to the chief of design, you should probably talk to the CEO as well. And I was like, oh, we can ask that? I didn't even know we were allowed to request that. He's a busy guy and stuff. So we had a long on the record talk, and then a even longer off the record talk, which was really fun. And I just never gotten to speak that candidly with a CEO before, someone that's, because this isn't his first company. He's run other companies successfully
Right.
and taken them public and delivered products. Um, so hearing someone that actually works in the tech space and not just talks about it was really interesting, because I speculate on product offerings and pricing and stuff all the time, and business strategies. we're always talking about it, but there were some people actually doing it. So I loved bouncing ideas off of him and like, have you guys thought about this? And he was like, yeah, but you got to remember this part. And it was a bunch of stuff I'm not allowed to talk about, but still like fun banter and back and forth. And it was just such a casual, like open guy as far as CEOs go. It was just exciting to have someone willing to talk about anything in
Yeah,
regards
that
to
was
the
cool to see you
company.
have that sit down interview. I'm like, wow, I didn't know Drew went the sit down interview type like that. That was pretty cool though to see that on your channel.
That's rare for me. I would
Yeah,
love to talk to, I'd like to talk to Tim, but I feel like if it was on the record, he couldn't say much.
yeah, you're
I
not
would
gonna get
love to
much out of
have
Tim.
I'd love to have an off the record conversation with Tim where I sign something that says I'm not allowed to talk about anything that you
You
say.
might you might
I
get
would love
that.
to get
You might get that, but you're not
I would
getting
love
anything
to
on the
have
record
a
though.
yeah, no. I know I've seen interviews with Tim and they're usually like, okay, any good question you can think of, he's not going to answer.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna
All you can
evade.
do is tell me more about Mother Nature in the environment.
Basically. All right, so me
How was
personally,
that? How did you like that?
banging, always banging. So me personally, I've been thinking about EV for my next video. I'm nowhere near in the market for a new vehicle anytime soon, but I'm thinking
Sure.
about EV for my next
It's a
vehicle.
good time to wait.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about all the options out there. Like I said, you got Rivian, Lucid, you got Aptera, all and the major companies like Ford, Chevy, they're now getting into EV. But I'm like,
Right. Right.
I don't think I would get away from a Tesla just because of the charging network. The supercharging network is still second to none with Teslas. However, I
Right.
know that a few of these bigger manufacturers are going to be able to tap into the Tesla North America supercharger network starting next year. But I'm still a little
Right.
hesitant though because I got to believe that Tesla's not going to make it that easy for them to just use. You probably got to have an adapter or something like that. And maybe it
Mhm.
won't charge as fast as if it was an actual Tesla. So I'm still, even with that added functionality coming, my thought
Yeah.
process is still the best option is going to be a Tesla just for that supercharger network alone. Am I paranoid, or do you think that these companies will have like the full access to the Tesla supercharger network that Tesla has?
Yeah, there's definitely truth in what you're saying. So the good news is in just a couple months actually, 2024 is when they're going to start offering adapters to the non-Teslas to
Mm-hmm.
plug in, but 2025 is where the majority of automakers actually, that's Ford, GM, Buick, Buick, Mercedes, Rivian, pretty much everybody I can think of. Everybody except Hyundai, Kia, Toyota. Honda, though, has agreed. They're all going to switch to the new connector, which is called NAX. It's like
Right.
USB-C of the EV world. So in 2025, when those third-party EVs come out, they won't need an adapter to plug into the supercharger network. And I'm also thinking by then there's going to be some improvements, some enhancements to the higher voltage superchargers, which should allow for the faster charging speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know the Cybertruck, which should be just weeks away from hopefully first deliveries, um, that's built on a higher voltage architecture. So if Tesla wants to support faster charging on that truck, they're going to have to start rolling out some faster chargers here pretty quick. And more EVs should be able to take advantage of that on the Tesla network. So I think personally 2025 is when it's going to get pretty interesting for the non-Teslas. Personally, if I was in the market, I wouldn't buy one until then. I would want to wait until they actually got the connector on the car so
Right.
you don't have to fumble with the adapter. And you're right though, you'll probably still not get quite as fast as an actual Tesla because there's certain things they can do. There's like amperage limits that they have to stick to with non-Teslas, but if it's a Tesla, they can go above that amperage limit because they know how big the battery pack is. So there's some cheating they can do when it's a Tesla, but
Right.
not so much if it's a non-Tesla. So there will probably always be a little bit of an advantage having a first party solution. You can just plug in and it already knows who you are. It knows who to bill. That's, in my opinion, been by far the main reason to go with the Tesla over anything else. But I'm hoping that advantage shrinks because I don't like that discussion. I hate when it's like, this is a great car, but the charging network sucks, so don't buy it. I'm like, that's annoying. I don't want to like, I love Rivians, honestly. I've checked out several and they're so cool. They're so capable. They're so great, but it's just really hard to recommend one right now because of the charger network in place. But I don't want people to have to pick a car based on the charging network. We don't do that with gas cars. You don't buy a Ford for the Ford gas stations or something. That would be ridiculous. So my hope is that the second half of the decade looks a lot more fair of just buy the car that looks the way you like and has the right features, and you don't have to think about the charging. That's how it should be. But
So
sadly
to
right
your
now,
to your point though, whose job is it to come up with a better solution right now? Because it sounds a lot to me like Apple and iOS. People complain that
yeah.
iOS is not available on other devices, and I'm like, you can't blame Apple that they made a service and product so good that people are locked in, and they're not allowing the use of it on other places. So you can't get mad at Tesla for having a superior supercharging network for their cars and getting ahead
No,
of the game on other people in the EV space.
true.
So how do the Fords and the Buicks and the Rivians, do they come together and come with their own charging network, or do they just bow down to Tesla? Like, how do we solve this discrepancy in the charging network, though?
Well, the good news is Tesla opened that NACS connector to third parties, so it's
Hmm.
an open standard. Actually, I think just yesterday or the day before, there were the first third party chargers put in with NACS.
Okay.
So it's the Tesla connector on the cable, but it's not a Tesla charger. So they've opened it up. There's no license. It's not like Lightning. It's not like Tesla gets a $4 fee or something
Right.
every time you deploy. It's anybody can manufacture it. Anybody can deploy it now, which should mean that all charging company, I think most of Electrify America said they're going to offer NACS, and ChargePoint has said they're going to offer NACS. So pretty much all the charging companies are on board with this transition because it's a slimmer connector with higher voltage and faster speed. So there's no reason to keep the old bulky charge connector around. There's literally no advantages to it. But because all the charger companies are on board and most of the automakers are on board, it should, I think, technically result in not just Tesla having tons of chargers, but EA having lots of chargers, ChargePoint having lots of chargers. But yeah, they'll probably still have their limitations because you don't have the plug and charge functionality that we like with superchargers, where you just plug in and it works. That's the Apple way, right? But
Right. Right.
um, I think that's the end goal, though. I think that's what most automakers and charge providers want to eventually get to, where you just have like a credit card attached to the VIN, and when you plug in, it just knows who to bill. You don't have to download some stupid app, or you don't have to swipe a card reader like at a gas station. Although there are some chargers that have card readers, Teslas don't. But I think they'll I think they'll eventually figure that all out. We're just in this kind of awkward self-discovery phase where all the charging companies and all the automakers are like, What are we doing? How do we do this?" And they're making the right decisions. It's just slow. They're just taking their
Yeah,
time,
because I agree
sadly.
with you. I mean, theoretically, you shouldn't choose a car based on the charging network, but that's where we're at right now.
No.
Like, if I'm buying a car today, I'm buying a
Yeah.
Tesla because I want to have the best charging network available to me. And right now, Tesla gives me that, and nobody else does. But until that changes,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
They had that first mover advantage. They
Yeah,
had the foresight to think about
yeah.
all this, and that's unfortunately something Lucid in particular did not think through. They put
Mm,
all of their time and attention on the car, and they put no time and attention on the charging network, which is really sad because it's an amazing car. Great range, great efficiency, fast charging, but the Electrify America network they're relying on sucks. Like, it's super unreliable, doesn't communicate with the car well, difficult to get the billing to work properly. There's all these problems that they've run into, and a bunch of people just sold the car purely because of that.
I
They
bet.
couldn't road trip with it. They were
Yeah,
stuck.
that's
They're
not
like,
good.
I'm not going to keep this car if I can't drive,
All right, Doodle. I think you're talking crazy. Talking about how we're at 2030 get closer, we're going to be able to charge EVs in 5 minutes. We can't even charge our phones in 5 minutes, not on a damn car, bro. No, absolutely not. I mean,
Would it blow
that'd be
your
great.
mind to know that EVs tend to charge faster than phones, though?
That would blow my mind. Is that a fact?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just talking percentages, like
Wow.
5% to 80%,
Interesting.
because I mean, it's mostly because of their management systems. Like,
Uh,
EVs have these big thermal, they're kind of just like this big chemistry lesson of like, okay, the battery pack can charge faster when it's hot. So there's an HVAC in a car, and you can divert that heat to the battery pack so that it gets warm, so it's optimized for a fast charge. And
mm,
then as you're charging it up faster and it's getting too hot, you can cool it down with the same HVAC system. Now you blow cold air on it, or of course, a lot of them are liquid cooled, so they can move that liquid around based on the temperature of the cells. Whereas our smartphones are these cheap little basic rectangles, so they don't have very complicated management systems. If the
Oh
battery
Lord,
gets hot, it's just like crap.
and the
Okay, I
problem.
guess I'm hot now.
Yeah, Apple
So
right now.
yeah, 15 Pro. Okay, don't use titanium anymore. That's all they can really do. But yeah, EVs are big enough that they can stack these really sophisticated
Mm,
thermal systems in place, so they can actually charge. My car charges much faster than my phone.
that is crazy. All right, I will get you out
It's
of here
weird.
on this.
All right.
Speaking of the standard conversation with the charger network and different things like that, there are some rumblings over in the EU that the EU may force Apple to open up iOS to third parties like Epic Games and other stores. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this should be a thing? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Mm,
And that's my issue is the EU. I've read through the laws and stuff, and it's not clear enough, in my opinion. It's not specific enough. A lot of the billing and stuff is just like this needs to be easier because technically there are some roundabout ways to do side loading already,
right.
but the EU isn't satisfied with that, obviously. That's why they're passing this bill. So I'm like, okay, if you make it so easy that like, how else is it going to work? How are you going to download a third party app store if not through the iOS app store, through a browser? I'm sure
Mhm.
you'd open Safari or Chrome or whatever, and you tap on some Epic Games Store download link, and that brings up this alternative store. Okay, if it's that simple to install software that is not from Apple on your phone, the malware business is going to take off. If
Mm,
it's that simple as just we need someone to tap a link in a browser and suddenly we can now install third-party software that Apple has not analyzed and checked. So it could be doing all kinds of stuff in the background that it's not supposed to do. Now, Apple hopefully builds in as many precautions as they can, like the camera indicator, the mic indicator, and that ask app not to track. And here's the location grabbing this app is asking for, can try their best, but again, if the app finds a loophole, finds a way to bypass those security measures, Apple's
right.
not going to know because they're not reviewing it. So I think if they make it kind of complicated and they make you jump through a lot of hoops, it's probably not going to hurt that much. Like if they make it like you got to click this and hit
Right.
allow and make sure that the person really knows what they're installing, then yeah, only the techie people are going to sideload apps, and only a
Yeah.
few people in the tech community are going to know what they're doing. But if you make it so simple that like Meta starts to pull their apps from the iOS app store because they realize, hey, we can track more data, or we can charge more or get higher revenues if we bypass the iOS app store. Um, there's a lot of financial incentive for these companies to work outside of Apple's own app store.
Right.
They can roll out updates faster, they can collect money faster, they can do more data tracking. I mean, I would like to. I've heard people say, "Oh, they wouldn't do that. They don't do that on Android, so they would never do that on Apple." But it's like, yeah, the Apple user base is more prone to spending large amounts of money on those games and on those services. So that in their head, there's a huge financial incentive for them to bypass the Apple Store fees. So it all comes down to how easy do they make it to sideload.
But to that, my rebuttal would be the Apple user base is more apt to spend larger amounts of money. But I also believe that the Apple user base is less likely to download anything outside of the Apple App Store. As a matter of fact, I would almost
True.
think that 98% of iPhone owners will never touch anything outside of the Apple App Store. That's why I kind of feel like this whole thing is just much to do about nothing. Because for
Okay.
over 10 years, the Apple customer
Mhm.
has been trained that if you want to get apps, you go to the Apple App Store. I mean, obviously the techies
Right.
know how to sideload and install jailbreaks and all that stuff. But again, out of
Yeah.
the population, how much we're talking about? What, less than 2%? If that. So
Oh yeah.
98% of the
Probably less.
population, yeah, less than that. 99% of the Apple population goes to the App Store to get their apps. And even if the EU forces third parties onto the iOS, that's not going to change. It's not going to change. So I don't know.
The only situation I could foresee is, again, if like a big tech company pulled a major app, if they
Right.
started pushing like you need to sideload Instagram now, or you need to sideload Facebook, or Fortnite works on the iPhone again. Popular games, popular social medias, if they start saying, if you want to access such and such feature, you got to download it through this other site, or you have to do it through this other thing. a big developer has a lot of power. But yeah, if we're talking about, small indie games that people want to pirate or whatever, or just some weird uh, productivity app that someone doesn't feel like paying for, so they want to sideload it. Probably there's a right way to do it, I think, where it probably wouldn't make a huge difference. I'm actually more curious about, I know the EU is pushing a bill for iMessage to become an open standard. I think that would be more interesting because Meta is kind of a monopoly right now when it comes to third-party messaging services. In the US, I think Messenger is still the most popular messaging app, and outside of the US, it's WhatsApp. So they own both. So if there was someone actually posing a threat to the texting business, it would be Apple, but they're exclusive to iPhone. But if they lost that exclusive, I think that would make it kind of interesting to see how Apple would handle it, how that would change the scope of texting if you had iMessage on Android and that kind of thing.
But I go back to the argument I just made. People on Android are so used to using Messenger or whatever their default phone's messaging app is. I don't think many people on Android are going to install iMessage to have iMessage unless they have iPhone family. Maybe. But again, it's going to be such a small number that are going to be willing to install iMessage, because that's the reason why iMessage is so popular on iPhone, because iPhone users don't have to go to an app store to install a third-party messaging app. Their native iOS messaging app just does the job. It's my message. So people aren't going to take extra steps when they don't have to. Yeah, we're all lazy. Yeah, correct. We're all lazy. Yeah.
That's true. Well, let me ask you this. Because I mostly agree with you. I think a lot of the EU's decisions it's like, whoa, that government has a lot of power, but a lot of the time they're making good calls. But is there anything you've read about the EU where you're like, that's too far, they shouldn't be able to do that?
Yeah, the whole allowing Apple to open up iOS, I think that they're stepping in a little too deep.
iOS on Android?
Yeah, that's crazy. But
wait, how do you phrase that? How do you iOS on
Android on iOS? I think it's more
okay,
something like that. That's too far, because when you are making regulations to that could potentially have like a major impact on how that company makes money, that you're dipping your toes too much. It's not. Yeah, and this whole thing kind of like irks me, because I've said it for years. Apple is not a monopoly. You got Android out here. You got other app stores out here. Apple is not a monopoly.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if Apple was a monopoly in this whole mobile-based game, but they're not. They're not. So why are we so focused on Apple and what they're doing when they're not even Android have a bigger market share still right now, I think, worldwide. Maybe not in the US, but worldwide, Android has the more market share. So why are we targeting Apple so much? But whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw someone complaining today, because I was joking about the EU having so much power, and they were like, see, this is what happens if you let it slide. They get to, and I'm like, I don't live in the EU. They're not listening to me. I'm not voting on this stuff. I'm just a bystander watching what goes on. And at this point, I wanted USB-C on the iPhone, and now I got it. So at this point, I'm thankful for what the EU has mandated, because I'm like, I wish Apple would have come to that decision on their own, but they didn't. So now I have to thank European Union for forcing Apple to make the right call. But like, people are like, yeah, but you said you were okay with that, so that encourages that. I'm like, no, they're going to do their own thing. The EU, I think, just doesn't like big tech companies making lots of money. So they're just trying to find ways to make sure that they can't make as much money, or they can't be as powerful. So let's diminish their power, their advantages, until the point that all phones basically can use any software, any app, and it's all transferable. And next they're going to say you have to put the A17 Pro chip in the Pixel phones now. That's we all have to share everything. And I'm like, okay, it's interesting to watch, like, a government flexing its power on a big tech company. But I don't think, unless you live in the EU and you're voting on this stuff, which I don't even think they are most of the time, we don't really have much of a say on this. We just got to watch and find out, I feel like.
And why should a government get in the nose of a business that built itself up to be what it is today? Like why are we attacking Apple for making all the right moves? Clearly, they started off in a garage, I think, or the trunk of somebody's car to where they are today, because they made the right moves and right investments to become the company that they are today. So now they do what they do so good that now we got to penalize them. Like, it seems kind of weird to me.
I
don't know.
agree. I think they've earned it. I think
They earned
they've
it,
earned a lot of
absolutely.
that cult-like following. They've earned that.
Exactly. But real quick before we go, the one thing that I will say, the reason why Apple does have the status that they have today is because they have Apple stores. I've seen one Samsung store my entire life, and that was when I was in New York last week. I saw one Samsung store. That was the first time I've ever seen a dedicated Samsung store. And let me tell you about my experience, Drew. I walk into the Samsung store, right? First of all, it doesn't even seem like a store. It seems like a studio that's pretending to be a store, so that was kind of weird. But I walked through this store for 15 minutes. I walked through the store. Nobody approached me, Drew. Nobody. I literally walked in, looked around for 15 minutes, and I walked out. Never being approached by anybody from the store.
In there.
Clearly not. Clearly. But I just find it odd that I would never have that experience in an Apple store. If I walk in an Apple store, I'm getting attacked immediately, okay? Immediately. Walking to a Samsung store, nobody talked to me. Nobody even looked my way. Like, I just walk around, look at everything, and then walk right out.
Oh, man.
Come on, bro.
Yeah. The Apple store I went to for the 15 launch, all the girl employees had special bedazzled makeup on.
Right. I believe it.
They were celebrating the titanium design. They all had custom makeup, and they were all asking,
wow.
So what, did you get a Pro or a Pro Max? And I was like,
yep.
Just a 15. And they're like,
they're like, damn you, Drew.
They're like, I think you're the only person getting a non-Pro today. I'm like, I know. I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to think different, you know?
That's the other thing that's kind of crazy. It seemed like Apple has gotten better at upselling the Pro models over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, whenever I run polls, I mean, it's biased because I'm asking people in the tech community, but the Pro Max is always are far in the lead. Everybody's getting the Pro Max. So, oh well. I guess they're good. We're encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. All right, yo. Captain of Team Apple, legendary Apple Sheep, reunited once again. Feels so good. I appreciate you making the time for me tonight, sir, especially at the last minute. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. Good to chat with you.
Absolutely, always. And appreciate y'all being here tonight, hanging out with us. So thank you for being here. Again, like I told you guys, I'm going to be out of town next week, so I don't know if I'll be here Friday, but keep a lock on my Twitter and we'll know. But other than that, enjoy your iPhones. And one more thing, y'all. If your iPhone is overheating, just take it to Apple to get it replaced. Just take it, get it replaced. You don't have to have Apple Care. Human. Yeah, right. Like a normal human. Take it to Apple and let them replace it. You don't have to have Apple Care. It's still under manufacturer warranty, yo. You don't need any special coverage. They will cover it. Yeah. They will replace it. Again, that's why Apple is the company that they are today, because they have legendary customer service like that. Not to mention the phone just came out, so they better cover it. But until next time, y'all, be kind, be safe, and I'll catch y'all on the social. Peace. Drew. Love Drew.